of Joseph. We're going to be in Genesis in chapters 43, 44, and 45. Now, since I know you guys are read up on this and you studied those chapters, if we were to sit and read those 3 chapters, it would be a long read and probably be here for 15, 20 minutes. But these chapters combine to cover a major event in God's plan. The focus of these chapters is the meal that Joseph has with his brothers in the palace when they return with their youngest brother, Benjamin. The scene is set with the brothers not knowing who Joseph is. That at this time he's the prime minister of Egypt. And although they don't know very much about him, he has a lot of information about them. So they're in the prime minister's palace, and the prime minister, who naturally is a very powerful person, he's very suspicious of them, of being spies. And to make the situation even worse, it seems as if the prime minister doesn't trust them and doesn't like them. In fact, has a strong distrust. So Joseph has this meal with his brothers, and it's a very lavish meal. It's almost like a banquet. Choice cuts, all the trimmings. But the brothers are very weary, and for having a choice meal, they probably did not enjoy it, and they probably didn't taste it much. It was probably very quiet. Okay. So during this time, we need to remember that what's going on in the brothers' mind is the demand that Joseph, as the prime minister, made, that they would not see him or be able to buy grain unless they brought their brother Benjamin back. However, Benjamin is present with this meal. So, on page 21 of tonight's study, number 1, the first question is, after the grain they had purchased from Egypt was eaten up, Jacob says what to his sons in chapter 43, verse 2? Tells them to go back and buy some more food. Okay. Who is the one that takes the role of the spokesman for the brother? Judah. And the significance of that is Judah is not the eldest. Reuben should have been the spokesman for them. What does Judah mean by being surety for Benjamin? Okay. Surety is a person who becomes a legally liable for a debt or for the failure of another. So he put himself up to be responsible should anything go wrong. Question 2, does Jacob change his mind about allowing Benjamin to go back with them? Yes, however, reluctantly. What are some of the things he told his son to take as presents for the prime minister in verse 11? The best products of the land. Honey was used as sweetener. Myrrh was used for embalming. How much money were they supposed to take with them? Double the amount. Yep. Question 3, when his brothers arrive, what orders does Joseph give in chapter 43, verse 16? That's right. He orders them to prepare a meal. And how did the brothers respond? Fear. They were afraid. They didn't know what was going to go on. They didn't know what's going to happen. Question 4. What did Joseph do when he saw Benjamin?
First, he cast a blessing on him, and then he went out and wept.
He cried. Yep. Okay. And how was the meal served?
Each group by themselves.
Okay. In segregated seating. It was an abomination for the Egyptians to eat with the Jews. And in what order were the brothers seated? Oldest to youngest. And who got the portions that were 5 times bigger than the others? Benjamin. Yep. Okay. So Benjamin received 5 times the portion food that his brothers did. Now, it's possible that Joseph did this deliberately, wanting to see if the brothers would react in jealousy and do to Benjamin like they did to him. Question 5. What orders does Joseph give concerning the grains of sack of Benjamin in 44 verses 1 and 2? What's that? I can't hear you. Oh, okay. Yeah. To fill the sacks with grain and to place all the money that they had brought with them into the bags, and then put Joseph's special silver cup in Benjamin's bag. Okay. Joseph may have been testing his brothers. However, when he claims to use the divination in chapters 44, verse 5 and 15, was he being truthful with them? No, he's not, because using a divination, that is an ancient black art, demonic art, and that would not have been consistent with Joseph's character. Joseph had the ability to interpret dreams, and that was a gift from God. If Joseph were seeking wisdom, direction from God, from some other place than God, he would not have that gift. Okay. Question 6. What does Joseph's steward say will be the penalty if one of the penalty for the one in whose sack the missing cup is found?
He will become my servant.
Slave, yes. Yep. Question 7. Something very interesting begins to happen in chapter 44, verse 18. Who is it that is speaking? Judah. And what is the significance?
He's offering himself in place of Benjamin.
He is, but the significance for this purpose is that it's not Reuben, who is the oldest son, and he should be the one doing it. Question 8. Besides giving a very moving account of the whole story leading up to this point, what does Judah request in Genesis 44, verses 18 through 34?
Take me instead.
That's right. Yeah. Judah requests to be held as a slave in the place of Benjamin and to let Benjamin go home. Question 9, how did Joseph respond to this request in chapter 45, verses 1 and 2?
He wept.
Yeah, he cried uncontrollably and loud so that the whole house, everybody in the palace, was able to hear him. Question 10. Finally, after all the twists and turns of the last several chapters, most of which were designed by Joseph, he reveals his identity to them. How do they take this information in chapter 45, verse 3?
My version says that they were stunned.
They were stunned, unable to speak, and possibly wondering if Joseph would have them killed. Okay. What words does Joseph use, or what words does Joseph say to them in 45:5? Right. Yeah. Don't be grieved, don't be afraid, don't be angry with yourselves because you sold me here. This was a merciful act on Joseph's part to put his brothers at ease. And what is his perspective on the past from this verse? Joseph's.
God was in charge.
God was in charge. Question 11. He further explains and develops the idea in chapter 45, verses 6 through 9. Who does he say has engineered all the events of the past? Yep. This all happened according to God's plan. What has been the point of all the events leading up to this moment?
God wanted to preserve his people.
That's it. He said, God sent me before you to preserve life. Question 12. How did Pharaoh find out about this? Chapter 45, verses 2 and 16.
They transferred Joseph weeping and reported it to Pharaoh.
Yes. Again, his crying was so loud that it was heard throughout the palace. And how did Pharaoh respond to that?
Did the family all come to Egypt?
Yeah, he was excited for Joseph. Yeah, he was, it was kind of interesting, but yeah, he was happy for him. 13, what were Joseph's parting words with his brothers before they left to get their father and their families and all their stuff from Canaan in chapter 45, verse 24?
He told them to not quarrel on the way.
Right, don't argue, don't get in arguments. And why did he say that?
So they got in a lot of arguments.
Okay.
He was familiar.
Yeah.
When they traveled.
In Joseph's view, it was a time of joy, it was a time of reconciliation, and he wanted his brothers to have that kind of mindset, that attitude. Question 14. How did Jacob respond to the news that Joseph was alive? Yeah. Joseph was stunned and initially did not believe his sons. Also, to take in the information that you've been told that your missing son is now the prime minister of Egypt. Yep. Question 15. Do you think this whole story is a good example of forgiveness?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
Well, because Joseph forgave his brothers for trying to kill him and selling him into slavery. And not only that, he came back at them with kind of like what you meant for evil, God meant for good. So
Yep.
I think that's just true forgiveness.
Yeah. Joseph's brothers did to him what amounted to the ultimate act of betrayal and hate. But love, as stated also in 1 Peter 4:8, love conquers a multitude of sins. Love and forgiveness conquer hate. Question 16. What does Jacob say about God in chapter 43, verse 14?
God Almighty,
Okay.
all the God.
Yep. May God grant you great compassion. What does the steward say about God in chapter 43, verse 23?
Your God, God of your father.
Right. Okay. Not an Egyptian god. Question 18. What does Joseph say about God in chapter 43, verse 29?
May God be gracious to you, my son.
Yep. Last question. What does Joseph say about God in chapter 45, verses 5 through 9?
God had a plan all along.
Yeah, God sent me before you to preserve your life. So, okay.